Well, that's it. Boro's January transfer window is over. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm actually recording this 2 hours before the deadline. Let's be honest, Boro fans. Nothing's going to happen, is it? So in this video, I'm going to discuss Boro's incomings, outgoings, what I think of the window overall, and if it's left Boro any stronger or weaker than when we started.
He's in, and he's snuck it across to Hayden Hutney!
So, let's have a little chat about Boro's January transfer window. The outgoings, the incomings, we're also going to look at what that's done, I think, both on the pitch for Boro and off the pitch, because I think it's had two kind of different impacts when you look at both individually. And then we're going to compare the squads from before the window to now, because, of course, I did do a video and I've done lots of content over the January transfer window, so feel free to check any of them out if you haven't already. But I did a video before the January transfer window running through every single position and defining whether I felt it was a position that I was happy with, a position that was okay but needed a signing, could have done with a bit of help, or areas that I thought desperately did need looking at throughout January. We will look at that, compare it to what I think now at the end of the video. So, this is what's happened in Boro's January transfer window, and I think it is quickly worth noting this has been a very quiet transfer window across the board for all clubs, really. It's been nowhere near as active as normal. You know, usually the way things go in January especially is the clubs like Boro in the Championship and the leagues lower have to, with the Premier League sides to make their moves, decide which players they want to free up. And that then sort of has a knock-on effect to Championship clubs who can bring them players in. And then once they've brought their players in, they can then release their players to teams in a lower level like League One. And then it just trickles down. And I think because of some of the FFP concerns that I think we've seen at some of the big Premier League clubs like Everton and Forest, that has scared quite a lot of big Premier League clubs from overspending this month. Therefore, they've been less reluctant to let some of their better players go. Some of their better players who aren't going to feature, I think is the best way of probably putting that. As well as all the injuries, I think, that have happened this season. There seems to be an increased number of injuries. I think the bigger clubs are just less likely to let players leave, and that's why things have just never gotten going in this January window, and that has certainly been the case for Boro and many others. But in terms of what we've done, outgoings, we've had Hayden Coulson leave, and he left to go on loan to Blackpool at the start of the window. No real surprise there. That's a move that I think a lot of Boro fans shook their shoulders at, really. You know, he was never good enough for Boro's starting 11. We brought in Bangura and Engel, so that made absolute sense, and it wouldn't surprise me if on his return his Boro career came to a swift end. The big one, of course, which was the final one to go for on deadline day, Morgan Rogers left Boro and moved to Aston Villa for what we believe to be an initial fee of £10 million, possibly rising to £16 million. I've covered that in detail on the channel, did a video on that yesterday during deadline day, so do check that video out if you want to hear my more detailed thoughts on Morgan Rogers leaving. In terms of incomings, Boro have brought back Matthew Hoppe from San Jose, if anyone's interested. Doesn't really make a blind bit of difference to me. In terms of attacking players, we've brought in Finn Azaz from Plymouth. Of course, that was very early in the window. Feels like a long time ago now, but that was a deal I was very happy with. I think he's one of the best upcoming creative players in the league. He's shown what he can do at Plymouth, and I still hold out hope he can reproduce that at Boro, albeit we've probably not seen it so far in the games he has played. He was very disappointing in our home draw against Rotherham. Looked alright in our previous away game in the league, but I think because we've had two Chelsea games to which he's cup tied, he wasn't eligible in time for the Villa game. We've not quite seen enough of us as yet to really make any kind of judgment, so I still hold out hope he'll be a good signing for us, but it's a little too early to say. We brought in Luke Thomas. He come in as a sort of short-term loan stopgap signing, we think, due to the injury to Alex Bangura, which will probably put him out for the rest of the season. So Luke Thomas has simply come back to fill that gap and compete with Lucas Engel in that left-back position. Of course, we've not seen anything of him yet, I think he looks alright. I think his numbers aren't as impressive. I don't think he's as strong defensively. I don't know on this one yet. We'll see how he goes, but we can't judge the guy one way or the other yet because he's not had a chance to play for Borough as yet. And then Luke Ayling, another stopgap loan signing at right back who has come in to cover the injury crisis we've had there. Obviously, Dijksteel's been out, but I think it's predominantly to come in and cover for Tommy Smith, who, like Bangura on the other side, is probably injured or is injured for the entirety of the season. So, let's talk about this off the pitch, first of all, because I think off the pitch, this has been a tremendous window for Borough. I don't think any Borough fan or anyone at the club would have expected or foreseen any scenario to which Borough would have made such a profit on a player who we've only had for 6 months, like we did Morgan Rogers. You know, the deal, the link come from absolutely nowhere. Still struggling to really believe it now, but yeah, Borough made 10 times the money we bought Morgan Rogers for in the summer. Bought him for £1 million, sold him for what we believe is at least 10. That may rise as well, so Borough are at least going to make 10 times the money on a player they brought in only 6 months ago. Now, I don't care how you look at it, how you stack it up. I know a lot of Borough fans wanted us to keep him, try and get more for him in the summer, etc, etc. For me, I think for a championship club to make that much money on a player in such a short space of time, no matter how you dress it up, is an incredible bit of business for Borough. And this come after we'd already invested in the likes of Finn Azaz and the loan signings too. So this has just added money to what we already had. And I think financially off the pitch, it maintains Borough's sustainable model. It allows us to still operate in a very sustainable way. We've seen in past seasons how important it was that we sold Marcus Tavernier, Jed Spence, Chuba Akpom like we did. And it allows us to have that room to probably push on in the summer when I undoubtedly think we'll probably see a lot of players leave and hopefully a lot come in, i.e. Hayden Hackney, who I think we'll get a big fee for in the summer. So the summer will be exciting, I think, for Borough in terms of the players we can add to the squad. And the big thing as well is the Borough players we've got currently, apart from the stopgaps that we've signed, are all permanents. So I think it's worth remembering that Borough don't have to completely reinvent the squad, have a massive turnover of players like we did in the summer. A lot of the players we've got, the majority will still be here next season and can just continue to develop. And we're in a position where we have the platform to build on this springboard that we've got, this platform that we've got currently. I think we'll have the funds to do it. I think we've got the squad to do it. And I think we've got the young players with the potential to do it as well. So off the field, and maybe on the field long term, it's good for Borough. We've got short-term loan signings who are going to help cover some of the big injuries we've got until the end of the season. They're not commitments. I dare say if Bangura and Smith get back fit in the summer, Luke Thomas will go back to Leicester. Luke Ayling will be a free agent. I think Luke Thomas might even be a free agent, possibly. Can't quite remember what his contract situation is there. So long-term, going into next season, Borough are in a good position to kick on and will have the finances. However, short term, this is where I want to discuss the impact this has more on the field than off it, because obviously I did a video at the start of the January window mapping out the Borough squad in all the individual areas where I think we needed to improve. Now, although I think we've improved in a lot of the areas that I wanted in defence and midfield, there is still a gaping area where we didn't. Now, what Borough did well is, I think, bring in players who are versatile and cover multiple areas where I think we could have improved. You know, you look at what Luke Ayling has brought to the Borough, for example. You know, earlier in the window, I thought we desperately needed a signing in at right back and could have improved in the centre of defence. What Luke Ayling has done is he has come in as a starting right back who is more than good enough for this level, stepped straight into the Borough side, and he can also cover at centre back if needed. So instantly my issues at the back were completely solved there. And obviously you add in Bangura's injury, which we weren't to have known of at the start of the January window. Borough have quickly acted to paper over that crack with Luke Thomas coming in to help Engel. So that's fine, not a problem. You then go into midfield. I think Finn Azaz has done a similar sort of job. I think he steps in to the number 10 position really well. I did want Borough to improve in that position at the start of the window. Azaz comes in and competes with Crooks, maybe Greenwood in that position as well. So I'm happy at 10. I think Azaz comes in and does that job. And in the area of midfield that I thought we could have done with an extra body, he probably helps us there too, because he can play in the centre of midfield. So if we have another crisis there, we've got Howson, O'Brien, Hackney, Barlasser and Azaz. So midfield 2, absolutely fine. Number 10, I think I'm happy enough. However, we move into the attacking areas and predominantly on the right and up front. Now, I was happy on the right-hand side prior to the January window because, in my eyes, we had Isaiah Jones and Marcus Forss. The issue we have now is we've got 2 strikers up front who are both injured and have been quite injury-prone in Latilaf and Josh Coburn. When they're out, we don't have a striker. Thankfully, Forss has come back into the fray, and I personally prefer him up front. That's where I've stuck him in my squad depth graphic. But what that then does is it leaves Isaiah Jones short with competition on the right-hand side. Add to that the fact that Isaiah Jones currently has a hamstring injury and we don't know how long he'll be out for. This now leaves us incredibly light on the right, and we still remain just as light up front. Now, I would take Forss as our striker till the end of the season. Absolutely, he's the best finisher at the club by a mile, and I think if we give him the chances that we've created in the time he's been out injured, we'd have probably scored an extra 5-10 goals, I dare say, which could have turned a lot of Boro'S draws into wins, for example. So I'm happy with Forss up front, but I still would have liked a striker. I think my impression is I think Carrick will play Forss on the right. I just don't know why. I just feel like that's where he would rather play him, and we're going to have Jones and Forss still on that right-hand side, and we're going to have to rely on Lath and Coburn up front, and that's where I go back to where I was at the start of the month. I just don't feel like they're enough. You know, it's common knowledge. We can't rely on Josh Coburn to get us the goals. He's a player who should have been out on loan this season at Plymouth. He wasn't deemed ready in the summer to be in Boro'S squad, so the fact that we're now having to rely on him week in, week out, I think shows that we're definitely short there. Lath has the potential, but still is so raw, so rough around the edges, and doesn't quite have the composure in front of goal to deliver what we need to frequently. So I still don't think them two are enough to get Borough where we need to be. So I think summing up the overall team, I think Ayling has provided a fantastic stopgap at right back and centre back. Thomas, perfect at left back. Azaz, great at 10 and in midfield. However, we now have a glaring issue on the right and up front. If Isaiah Jones is out for a long period, Forss may have to play there, and at the minute, I don't have faith in the strikers who would play up top to get us the goals. So in that area, and overall, are Borough any further forward or any further back than where we were at the start of January? I don't think we're either. I think we're in exactly the same position. You know, Ayling, Thomas, Azaz, they cover gaps that are kind of already there. You could argue Azaz has replaced Rodgers. Ayling has replaced an injured Tommy Smith. Thomas has replaced an injured Bangura. They're all like-for-like replacements. We've not added, really. We've not improved significantly in any area. You know, is Ayling better than Smith? Probably not. He's just replaced him in that position. Is Thomas better than Bangura? Probably not. We've just sort of like-for-liked in that position. Is Azaz better than Rodgers? I mean, it's too early to say. And in the other areas, we're just kind of the same. And I think that's where I come to my conclusion that on the pitch, although the loan signings I think we've done very well there, Borough are no further forward than where we were before. And I look at what Hull have done in this window, I look at what Ipswich have done in this window, and a couple of other teams. I feel like they have took at least a slight step forward in what has been a very tough January. Borough haven't really moved. And I think it's been obvious since the summer we've needed a striker. We tried getting Tom Cannon, we failed. The club, according to the journalists and the sources, were aware that we needed a striker. They were just waiting for the right one to come available at the right price. That obviously hasn't happened, and we're basically back to where we were. Now, I understand why the club would want to wait for the right price and hold out for the right player. And I'm not going to say that I enthuse the club to panic buy or overpay on players, to desperately panic just to bring a player in for the sake of it, because we've done that before and it's never ended well. So I understand why Borough have not bought a striker in when there's not been the right one available. However, as a fan, it is a bit deflating coming out of the window and essentially looking at them key areas, especially up front. It's such a key position, and seeing that Borough haven't really improved there at all. We've failed to get a striker in. We've got injuries elsewhere, like we have on the right-hand side, and I think that could hinder us going forward to the end of the season. So, yeah, to summarise, it's been a meh transfer window for Borough. Off the pitch, fantastic. On the pitch, meh. It is just that, if I'm honest. And does it impact Borough's chances of getting the playoffs? Don't think it does either way. I think maybe the only impact you could argue are what our competitors have done. Maybe we fell behind a little bit in terms of some of the other clubs who've made some signings. I'll point out Hull again, who've had an unbelievable window. But at the same time, we've acted responsibly. We've got in the money for Rodgers. We've not blurted money out for the sake of it. And you could also argue Borough have gotten to the point where they are now with half a squad who've been injured for the majority of the season. So getting McGree back full time might feel like a new signing. When Jones comes back, he might feel like a new signing. We've got so many players who've been out for so long. Getting them back and getting them playing week in, week out might feel like a bunch of new signings anyway, given the state Borough's squad has been at throughout the majority of the season so far. And Carrick's been able to get this injured, battered and bruised Borough team into mid-table. So you could argue that with players coming back, we might already have enough to push into the playoffs. Or we might not. It's hard to say. But I think for me, without that striker, I definitely have question marks. And if I was to put a prediction on where Borough would finish now, I think we are the most 7th and 8th place team you can possibly see. Until we find a bit of consistency and we have a consistently fit squad, it's hard to really say. But I feel like the only positions currently available are 5th and 6th. And I just don't know if we've got enough to beat some of the teams who are between us and them positions and get in there by the end of the season. Time will tell, but that's my overall thoughts, guys, on the January window. It's just that, you know, it's all right on the pitch. At least in the summer, I'd like to think if we get there, and we likely will still be in the Championship, we can really have a good go and maybe push on to next season. I'm not writing off this season yet, but that's sort of where we are off the pitch. On the pitch, we'll just see what we can do with the players that we've got. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you're a Borough fan, neutral fan or whatever, let me know your thoughts on Borough's January incomings and outgoings. Do leave me a comment in the section below. I look forward to chatting to you guys down there. Subscribe for much more content. Of course, I do Borough content in between games and I review every single game as well. I'll be looking forward to chatting to you guys after the Teesweir derby this weekend. Hopefully we can get a result there. But until next time, guys, do take care. Big thank you for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.